Now This News and the appeal. Today, we are going to talk about the police murder of George Floyd and the crises that the ongoing killing of unarmed Black people has presented, both to policing and to our democracy. We are joined by former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, former Mayor of San Antonio, and candidate for Democratic nomination of the presidency of the United States, Julian Castro, Colorado State Representative Leslie Herod, and we're expecting Minneapolis Ward 5 City Council member Jeremiah Ellison to also join us. 2 unarmed Black people are killed by police every single week in America. Protests have erupted across the country in response to one of the latest killings. George Floyd was unarmed and calling for his mother, telling police he could not breathe when an officer kneeled on his neck and took his life. For years, people with power and money have used police to target Black and brown Americans and divide the country. And even as the country shut down, killing of unarmed people continued. Ahmaud Arbery, as we covered here with Senator Cory Booker, was jogging through his neighborhood. An emergency medical technician, Breonna Taylor, was gunned down in her home on a no-knock warrant looking for other people. And now we see what happened to George Floyd. And traditionally, there has been little to no accountability for the officers nor the departments involved. If anything, the treatment of protesters, the tear gassing, the firing rubber bullets into crowds just to clear the way for a presidential photo op, dropping tear gas from helicopters into crowds, the kettling, just highlights the apparent disdain American police departments have for American people, particularly Black and brown American people. Just last night, Louisville police, the same department that killed Breonna Taylor, and National Guard members shot into a crowd and killed David McAtee, a barbecue chef described as a pillar of his community who used to feed police officers free meals while they worked. This is a national crisis. So let's get to talking with our panel about the problem, our current state of affairs, and what should happen next. Thank you all so much for joining us. Secretary Castro, we'd like to just start the discussion with you. You were the first candidate in the presidential primary with a policing plan, and you've just called for the replacement of the president because he ordered peaceful protesters tear gassed and shot with rubber bullets so that he could cross the street for a photo op. Do you think that the issue of police violence has received enough attention? And what do you think about the attention it has received? Do you think the tone has been correct? Do you think the media is doing the right job on this? I mean, where are we going wrong?
Yeah, well, first of all, Josie, thank you so much for having me. Great to be with the appeal and everybody that's watching. I want to also give a shout out and say hello to Representative Herod and thank her for her leadership. I know that she's been working on this issue in a very constructive way and is working on it right now. And thank you for sharing that with us today. To answer your question, no, I don't think that this issue has received the attention that it deserves. What I have seen is that you can draw a straight line through generations of people of color and especially of young Black men who have experienced police brutality, have been the victims of excessive force, and more than that, on an everyday basis, are targeted by police in unfair ways. And you think about 1965 and Watts, you think about 1992, Rodney King, 1979, 1980, Arthur McDuffie in Miami, Michael Brown in Ferguson, and George Floyd, along with so many other cases. What I see is that it's episodic. In that sense, the way that we've dealt with this issue as a country is roughly analogous to the way that we've been dealing with the issue of common sense gun reform. There's an incident that happens that flares up people's energy and passion on the issue, and politicians that generally run away from addressing real specific policy changes that we need to make in order to actually solve the problem. Because we know what policy solutions could work. It's just that too oftentimes this isn't a conversation that a lot of politicians, office holders want to have. That's true at the local level. I think that's true at the state level and the federal level. The best thing I think that is coming out of this moment is that I feel like that's changing. You can palpably feel and also hear in the words of elected officials, pushed by the people, that now they're focused more on specific changes that we can make that are going to hopefully make this situation better, reform policing, make it more fair and more effective, and take a target off of the back unfairly, especially of young Black men and young Black women.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting, right, to think about this moment versus even 5 years ago. I mean, it does feel like the tone has shifted in a way that it remains to be seen what kind of change that actually makes. But we know that actually having people grasp the severity of the issue, and obviously not enough people do yet, but even that number seems to be increasing is a little relieving. Your plan did something, people use the term qualified immunity, and I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand what that means. It's a kind of a technical legal term, and your plan included removing qualified immunity for police officers. And in fact, an independent representative and this former Tea Party conservative, Justin Amash, has recently proposed legislation that would do the same thing. Do you see this idea of bipartisan consensus around removing qualified immunity, making sure that police officers can be held accountable, forming, kind of nationwide? And what do you think it would take to get a bill like this passed?
Well, I mean, this is the kind of coalition that it's going to take, right? I mean, Justin Amash and I probably disagree. I'm sure we disagree on a lot, although